Thank you.
Thank you.
Nick, any decision on what you're going to do this Sunday with the starters and with Saquon specifically?
Yeah, we're gonna rest some guys. I know we're locked into that number 2 seed, so we're gonna rest some guys. There's gonna be some guys that are resting. There are gonna be some guys that are in reserve roles. You can't obviously rest everybody with the schedule. With the roster. And so yeah, that's our plan moving in here forward.
Is Saquon going to be one of them?
Yeah, he'll probably be somebody that rests.
How valuable will that be for those guys? They've been playing. The bye was early this year. They've been playing 12 straight weeks.
Yeah, that definitely played into all the decisions here. Is our bye week being week 5, very early bye week, and so it's very valuable to be able to be in this position to do that, and so. Again, we want to use this week. This isn't our first time having to do this, and we've had experience with this. So a lot of that went into, planning all these things. We want to use this week to continue to get better. Whether we're playing in the game, whether we're not playing in the game, whether we're playing in a reserve role, whether we have a big opportunity ahead of us, we want to use this week to get better because of our goals moving forward.
Some other coaches in public.
All right, that was Nick Sirianni addressing the elephant in the room. Is Saquon going to play against the Giants to break that single-season NFL rushing record? The answer is no. It seems like they are going to rest him. Getting a look at the NFC playoff picture, the Eagles, you heard Sirianni there, pretty much locked into that 2 seed. They clinched the playoff berth. They've clinched the division, and it does not look like Saquon is going to play. They are going to rest him for their Week 18 matchup against the Giants. Let's welcome back the guys. We have Leger Douzable and Bryant McFadden. Gentlemen, of course there's records and they want to be broken. Everything we saw at the college level with Ashton Genty, and now Saquon 101 yards away from breaking Eric Dickerson's single-season rushing record in the NFL. Leger, I'll start with you. Is this the right decision? Were you expecting it, even though we have that record on the line when there is so much more to look forward to in terms of not only the conference, just the playoffs in general?
Yeah, Jack, I kind of expected this, right? When you look at the totality of the season, you just heard them talk about it. They had an early bye week, so they've played essentially 12 straight weeks. So this can become another mini bye for them to get ready for this playoff stretch run. And if you look at how last week's game kind of flowed, I think there's something to be noted that Saquon was still in the game when a lot of the other starters were out. And I think it's because they wanted him to eclipse 2,000 rushing yards in 16 games, right? That way he could always have that mantle, even though he's going to be, I believe, top 8 in regards to performances for single season rushing. But he didn't get to chase down Eric Dickerson. But I think it's important to note that he got over 2,000 yards in just 16 games. So this is who Saquon Barkley is, too. I wouldn't even be surprised if Nick Sirianni went to him on the side and say, you know what, I may even give you a first half to play. And Saquon was like, nah, it's more about the team. It's not about me. We saw this earlier versus Giants when he had an opportunity to set a record for rushing yards. And he said, no, let the young guys eat. Let them go out there and get those carries. Let them get that experience. Let them go out there and have fun. Saquon has always been a team-first guy. So this doesn't surprise me at all. Again, I think to Nick Sirianni's point, 12 straight weeks on the body is a lot. And you want to be as fresh as possible when you're trying to make a run to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, Leger, I'm right there with you, my guy. This is the right thing to do. I think for us as fans, selfishly, we want to see him break the record because this record has been in place for such a long time, and it just kind of gives us things to talk about. But when it comes to the overall greater good of the team and Saquon Barkley, this is the right thing to do. Eclipsing 2,000 yards is a great achievement for Saquon Barkley. I think he embraces that. He understands that. And to your point, I think that was the best achievement for him to go get in terms of a goal. And that's why he played a little longer than some of the other starters did. But now chasing another record in a meaningless game, it doesn't make any sense. It's been a long, long season, especially for Saquon Barkley, who has participated in every game for the Philadelphia Eagles. And get this, he has 345 carries for the year. He's #1 in the National Football League amongst all running backs. He surpassed any other year in terms of carries. This has been the most he's touched the football running in his whole career. So when you look at his overall body of work and the workload he's had to embrace and endure week in and week out, no question, he needs some rest. Because think about this, for Nick Sirianni, who's done a great job, it seems like every 2 or 3 weeks he's on his hot seat. His seat is hot. Just imagine, hypothetically speaking, if he played Saquon Barkley in a meaningless game because they got the number 2 seed. Regardless of what happens, win, lose, or draw, they have the number 2 seed. Just imagine if he played Saquon trying to chase Eric Dickerson's record and Saquon sprains an ankle, high ankle sprain. Remember, he ain't Pat Mahomes. He plays the running back position where lateral movement is very, very important. And now he goes into the first round matchup against whoever 50% or barely can't even play at all. Just imagine all the callers that would be calling into Philadelphia radio, local stations, and saying, get him out of town. Get him out of town. So for the greater good of the team, sitting him is the right thing to do. Sit him. Great job.
You know, one person who is probably happy that he will be sitting is Dickerson himself. He did not mince words when talking about potentially losing his record, but we saw Sirianni there talk about resting some starters, and it's interesting because I heard Bill Belichick earlier this week talking about that same thing and how it's kind of awkward to address the team and say, hey, these 3 to 5 players, we're going to rest, but we don't care about the rest of you. You guys are going to have to play and do this. B-Mac, is that an awkward conversation for players to hear?
No, it's not, because when we're in the locker room, we know who the guys are. We know who the 5-star players are. We know who the vets are. So instantly coming into this week for the Eagles, you already got a good understanding on who probably won't be participating in this ball game, and you don't have an issue with it because they've been in the fire for some time. They've earned the right to have a week off, even though we're playing a game. We used to deal with that sometimes and with the Steelers when I was there. You know, we're going into a situation where we know this game really doesn't mean anything. We already knew who wasn't going to be playing. The Casey Hamptons of the world, James Ferrier, Troy Polamalu, Hines Ward. And for the younger guys, they've earned that right. I want to get to that position, but right now I'm not there yet. So I got to go out and do what I'm supposed to do. So I love the transparency with coach and having with the entire guys, because that's how you keep the locker room intact instead of not communicating and now guys learning on the fly. Because for some of the younger guys, Leger, you know this, knowing that some of the key starters won't be participating, now I got to game prep differently. I got a game plan differently. I got to make sure I'm ready to go because I'm playing more snaps than I usually would play. So because of coach transparency, I can attack this week with a different mindset compared to what I've done in weeks past.
Now with the Eagles locked into that number 2 seed here, it's hard to imagine this was a team that did start the season out pretty slow, and then they've come so far, and we've seen this great performance from Saquon. Leger, how big of a threat is this Eagles squad when it comes to the NFC? And to make a run at a Super Bowl and actually win this time?
Yeah, they're a major threat when you talk about probably besides maybe Detroit and the Vikings. They're right there in that tier as well because they're one of the most complete teams in the NFL. When you just look at on paper, right, the talent on both sides of the football, people were worried. You talked about it, Jack. They kind of started slow in the beginning of the year, but that defense came along and became one of the best defenses in football. They got back on track last week. C.J. Gardner-Johnson with a couple interceptions. They got after the quarterback as well. This is a very dangerous team, and it kind of reminds me of that 2022 year, B-Mac, because let's not forget, Jalen Hurts got banged up towards the back of the half of the season, right? Missed a couple games, came back week 18, looked a little rusty, and then they literally massacred everybody on the NFC side through the playoffs. No, Mox doesn't want to hear this, but this was the game that Brock Purdy had the elbow injury, right? And they were putting Christian McCaffrey at quarterback. And Jalen Hurts, to me, was the best player in that Super Bowl, even with Patrick Mahomes on the field in that 2022 Super Bowl. So this is a dangerous team. They got to get Jalen Hurts back healthy. Hopefully we'll hear a status update in regards to him over the next couple of weeks. But this team is legit contenders to win the Super Bowl.
I couldn't agree with you more. And as a 49ers fan, I hate to say, this is another team I was wrong about this season. But I'll tell you what, Vic Fangio has that defense absolutely dialed in. And we're always so appreciative of you two being dialed in with us. Leger and BMAC, thank you for your time. And again, NFL on CBS Sports on Sunday, the 1 p.m. block. We got a lot of really good games. The Bills at the Patriots, Giants at Eagles. Eagles resting some of their starters, but those divisional matchups can be tricky. And then in the 4:25 window, you got the Chiefs at the Broncos. Must-win game for the Broncos, and the Chargers at Raiders.